Hi, I'm sitting here with Ryan Hoch, one of the founders of Overgrad. Thank you so much for joining me, Ryan.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. You guys just celebrated your 3 years.
We did.
How is that feeling for you?
It's good. You know, it's been a long process, but haven't regretted it at all. So excited for the things that are on the horizon for Overgrad, and things are definitely starting to pick up in year 3. So.
Yeah. So can you briefly describe for the audience and those who are not aware, what is Overgrad and what are you guys doing?
Yeah, so Overgrad's a college and career readiness platform for high schools, school districts, and community-based organizations that's designed to help students identify what they want to do, where they're at currently, and then shows them how to get there. So really extracting meaning out of their education.
And I did some research on you. I know you went to school at University of Champaign,
Yes.
Illinois, and you studied business and engineering.
Correct.
What was the transition from school into real life job?
Yeah, so while I was in college, I was always in between kind of, do I go engineering or do I go business? I ended up majoring in engineering, minoring in business, and coming out of it, I thought the ideal career for me was consulting. Then kind of the economy wasn't too hot at that point, and I had some offers on the table. Teach for America kind of came across my radar 2 days before the final deadline was due. I was like, hey, I'll fill this out, send it in. It's a prestigious thing. I don't know. My one and only career, though, I thought that I would never be. Told myself this my whole life, was to be a teacher. Turns out I get the opportunity. It comes across my table. I kind of got sold on the vision of Teach for America, decided to dive in to being a high school math teacher and ACT prep teacher in St. Louis Public Schools. And I uncovered what my passion was. I wouldn't have told you heading into that it was education. I would have told you whatever pays me the most money is what I want to do. And I actually tried to go back to that as a consultant post Teach for America and realized money really meant nothing to me. It was more about what I was doing and the impact that I was having. So.
And how has that shaped your life right now?
Yeah, I wouldn't have started Overgrad if that wasn't the case. I could have been in a very comfortable position working for Deloitte as a tech consultant and, you know, kind of branched off in industry that way. But I realized that, you know, for me, the impact that I had on students directly in the classroom was so infectious. And when I was working as a consultant, it was more so like, how are you impacting the bottom line on like this giant corporation? And for me, that wasn't motivating whatsoever. So it completely changed what my career trajectory is. I think like for the rest of my life, no matter what happens with Overgrad, you know, if it's extremely successful and I can stay with it my whole life, if we're required at some point, or if it doesn't work out, like education's what's going to be my home. So crazy how things work out. To say that like an engineer ended up in education, I mean, it's not very standard, but very grateful for it.
Sure, yeah, not at all. It's a surprising story to hear.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people, when they're thinking of startups and taking the risk, and all the scary things that come with it, like job security and 401ks and, you know, paid time off. What's the difference from what you're experiencing as a consultant and now? Yeah,
so the most difficult transition was your day wasn't defined by anyone. Like nothing happens in a startup if you don't do it. And that's something I think that a lot of people struggle to get used to and taking ownership of that. I mean, it started out of, we bootstrapped for, up until very recently we were bootstrapped, so out of just our apartments and things along those lines. So building a routine around it and a regimen and like knowing all these temptations that exist around you and how you can kind of build these walls to keep them away and keep focused on your work. What I realized too, it's like very easy to always be working when you have a startup, just as it is with consulting, but again, nothing moves unless you're actually doing it with a startup. And so you're always like, I can be doing more, and that will drain you so incredibly quick. So I think that was like one of the most challenging transitions, like paid time off, things along those lines, like doesn't really bother me. When you're doing something that you love to do, like you never really think about those things, like, cause I mean, work kind of becomes part of your life because you enjoy doing what it is that you're doing. But one thing about like, you know, corporate life is you can find ways to avoid doing things you don't want to do. But in the startup, if I didn't want to do it, then it wasn't going to get done, and I had to just like suck it up and like take care of those things. So I got very good at sales, and I got good at like the skills that I didn't have before out of strictly necessity, because if I didn't do it, then no one was going to do it.
Right. We like to call that getting shit done here.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I call it too. So yeah.
So what are you've kind of talked about some challenges that you guys that you faced in the transition.
Yeah.
What as a company right now what challenges are you facing?
So we have an education product. It's free for high schools and districts to use, but the most difficult thing is that education is notoriously very slow moving, and that isn't a good thing for a startup, right? Startups, you want to be as fast as you can, scale as quick as you can, get to that critical mass so that you can start having the impact that you intend to have an impact on. Which is why when I came into this, I wouldn't have told you that my roadmap was 3 years to kind of be where we're at right now. But startups, especially in education, take patience and persistence, and that's a lot of times who comes out on top. Like all the time you hear about these instant success stories, but most of the people that do really well with startups are people that were able to grind it out and push through it. And that's so true in education, even where there's these giant companies that control market share, and it's very difficult to kind of introduce a new concept into public school systems. But we're doing it, and it's incredibly exciting. But that is by far and away the most challenging piece for us, is how can we accelerate the adoption timeline for our product at schools and districts. So always trying to think and innovate through that, and just listening to our customers and figuring out what it is we need to do to actually get our product into students' hands.
What schools are you guys targeting right now?
Yeah, so when I first started Overgrad, and this shows you how much frequently things change, it was focused on just four-year universities. So we thought these charter networks that were really focused on, getting kids to and through college were going to be our target customers. We learned very early on that they used one of our competitor products, and even though it was a paid product and we thought we can compete with them very evenly on features, it's very tough to get people to switch. And so what ended up happening was we started getting adopted by more rural communities. So schools, districts that have high aspirations for their kids but don't necessarily have as deep of a budget, so can't go out and purchase other tools and technology. And that was kind of our low-hanging fruit. And the feedback we got from there was college isn't for everyone. You have to make sure that you show kids career pathways and helping them understand you go to college because you want to unlock some sort of opportunity. And that was super eye-opening for us, because before it was just we'll help kids go to college, and even if they don't go to college, they're going to be in a better position because they are better prepared for whatever lies ahead. But now it's more so we take the stance of education for a purpose. So you want to be an engineer, so that's why math's important to you right now as a sophomore in high school, and that's why it's going to be important for you for whatever college you think of going to, and then ultimately whatever career that you end up in.
Do you guys have numbers for kids that have been using?
Yeah, so up to this point, we've primarily served the Illinois market. 1 in 6 high schools is using us. 1 in 6 public high schools is using us in some way, shape, or form. We service just over 35,000 kids. The goal is to get to 100,000 kids this fall. So we've been very aggressive in terms of growth and outreach and things along those lines. That's why I say year 3 is a pretty exciting time, because we're on track to hit those metrics, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done to get there.
Yeah. That's amazing.
It's good. The thing is though, is that you're never satisfied. It's nice sometimes to step back and be I impacted 400 kids in my 2 years of teaching. That felt incredible. And now I have 35,000 kids on something that I built, which seems like such a huge step forward. But to me, it still feels like I'm not doing enough. So there's always kind of that I don't think that will ever stop. I'll just probably continue to feel there's Chinese students need what we're doing, so why not go to China now? Or there's always going to be more opportunities to have broader impact for what it is that we do. So it's good. I sometimes try to sit back and say you've done a good job so far, but in all honesty, I'm not happy, and I just want to keep pushing and really continue to grow Overgrad. So
I feel like that's a pretty standard answer for people in the startup world, is just keep go, go, go. You
don't realize it until you're in it. You think that things will just take care of themselves, but it takes a lot of work, and you always want to see more, so.
I'm just curious, what was your parents' reaction to you taking this journey?
Yeah, so for lack of a better way of saying this, I was always kind of I was good at a lot of things growing up. So I was a good athlete, I was very good at school, and I kind of stood out amongst my parents. So it's kind of Ryan's responsible enough to kind of do whatever he thinks is right. So from my parents' perspective, they were going to be supportive no matter what I did, because they trusted my judgment, and that might be some like them being naive on their side of things, but like that wasn't an issue. The biggest issue was she was then my fiance, my now wife, just comes from a very conservative background. You know, her dad was a great provider for the family. Her mom worked as well, but like kind of came from that background. So telling her that, hey, your income's going to support us for a while, and I'm going to like take this risk and start something and leave this well-paying job with a great career path to go start something. That took about 7 months to convince her. But
sure it's unsettling.
exactly. And it's still years into marriage. You know, it's still something that comes up. But she's gotten more supportive and understands kind of like that's where my passions lie, and I'm incredibly grateful for her, because I don't think I'd be in the position I'm in now had she not been there for me, supporting me, and like kind of been someone to lean on. But at the start, one of the hardest people to convince, and now she's one of my biggest supporters. So
I like to close with a question. And what is a piece of advice that someone has given you along your journey that's helped continue you moving forward?
One piece of advice I got very early on is that don't get into this unless it's something that you absolutely love and can obsess over. I've spoken with so many friends and know so many people that started companies and industries and spaces where they saw it as the quickest way to making, like becoming a millionaire or getting really rich. They saw an opportunity that had like money attached to it, and that's why they went after it. A lot of those companies kind of fizzle out after like a year or two if it doesn't work. And I'm so incredibly grateful that I got that advice, because if I wasn't doing a startup that wasn't in education, I probably wouldn't still be doing this 3 years in, because it is so incredibly frustrating and so exhausting. And a lot of times it doesn't feel very rewarding for like all the work that you put in. But at the end of the day, I love the space that I'm in, and I love the chance I have to make an impact on. And if I had not have heard that from the start, I might have picked some other industry to go after that give me a better chance of making money faster. But I wouldn't be sitting here right now today if that was kind of the path that I went down. So.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your advice and for being here with us today.
Absolutely, it was my pleasure. I had a great time.
For people who are interested in learning more about Overgrad, where can they find you?
Yeah, just go to overgrad.com. Hopefully our website does a good job of conveying the message of what it is we do and who it is that we serve.
Amazing. All right. Thanks again.
Thanks.